The picture you've just seen is a contrast between the primitive Arabian Peninsula in the 7th century and the description of a supernova in the Quran during that time. Now, before I describe a supernova, a word about stars in general. Now, stars are glowing spheres of hydrogen and helium gas. They shine because of thermonuclear reactions. As a result of the extreme conditions in the core of the star, hydrogen nuclei are fused together, producing helium and energy. And some of this energy is poured out into space. That is why the sun shines, and the rest of it is used to uphold the star. Now, the thermonuclear reactions produce an outward gas pressure, and this is countered by the inwardly directed gravitational forces exerted by the matter of the star. The stability of the star is therefore maintained by these two forces. Gravity trying to crush the star and gas pressure trying to explode the star. And during this balancing act, they steadily shine. Now, the main fuel of stars is hydrogen. Now, stars have only so much hydrogen fuel. Now, when the hydrogen fuel reserves are depleted, the star suffers an energy crisis. What happens now? Gravity dominates, compressing the core, and this, in the case of the sun, will give rise to what we call a bloated red giant. And I've discussed this before in previous videos. Now, supermassive stars, in other words, stars about 6 to 8 times the mass of our sun, have a more dramatic fate. So what happens? When the energy reserves run dry, gravity dominates, and this compresses the core and leads to a sudden increase in temperature, density, and mass. Now, when a threshold value is reached, the core explodes, generating an outward burst of energy. Now, without the support of the core, the outer material of the star, having now no foundation, comes crashing down. And when it meets this outward blast of energy created by the explosion of the core of the star, it creates a cosmic force of unimaginable density, literally blowing the star apart. Now, astronomers, when they turn their telescopes to the sky, they observe these explosions as bright objects which appear suddenly and unexpectedly. And when they see these bright objects, this unexpected appearance of bright objects, it's most probably a supernova. The explosion hurls the life-essential chemicals manufactured by the star during its lifetime in the surrounding medium. And the pressure wave caused by this explosion sweeps through space, carrying with it these life-essential chemicals. And as it moves through space, compresses dust and gas in its path, which may lead to formation of new stars and planetary systems. Our solar system was perhaps triggered by such a supernova. It's a sobering thought that stars light years distant, exploding millions of years ago, give rise to the chemical units or give rise to the chemical material that you and I made of. So we are literally made of star stuff. Concerning a supernova, chapter 86, verse 1, 2, and 3 declares, "Consider space and the night visitant therein, which appears suddenly after a cataclysm. And what would make thee conceive how great the night visitant is? It is a star of piercing brightness." Now, this is a fitting description of a supernova. It is described as a night visitant because it's clearly visible in the night sky. Equally significant is the term guest or newcomer or visitant. Like a guest, this star appears as a bright object unexpectedly and suddenly, and like a guest, leaves after a brief visit, relatively speaking in terms of astronomical standards. It is not a permanent resident in the sky. Now, the explosion is preceded by cosmic convulsions, which explain the term after the cataclysm. Now, the Arabic word atarik describes the violent nature of the supernova. Now, for a few seconds, this explosion outshines more than 1 billion suns. And the whole process of implosion and explosion only lasts for a few seconds. This is no ordinary star the Quran is describing, and hence the rhetorical question, and what would make thee conceive how great the night-visitant is? It is a star of piercing brightness. So for a few moments, this star shines brighter than 1,000,000,000 suns. Now my insertions is justified by the following verse, chapter 53:49, which says, "It is He alone that sustains a star, which appears when energy and heat is generated, giving it its bright appearance." Now we know that stars are generally described as feeble, faint lights in the sky. But this star that Quran is describing is a bright object, and therefore most probably a supernova, appearing as such because of the energy surge. And the last verse, which is related to the supernova, chapter 56:75 states, "By the falling down of fragments of a star." Now here's an oath-like assertion, and the fragments of the star is a result of the explosive event blowing up these bits of star material. Now we know there's no direction in space, and the falling down of the star parts is not incorrect. The Quran is merely referring to the separation of fragments of the star from the main body of the stellar fragment. Consider the fact that in the 7th century, stars were described as feeble lights in the sky, and the true nature of the supernova was only uncovered in the 1930s by a Bulgarian scientist. These three verses once again reveal the advanced scientific predictions expressed in the Quran. Information unaccounted for, information that could not have emanated from a human being.